What's up, y'all? We're practically 2 weeks away from opening day, so I'm deciding to do the top 5 players at every position. I'm trying to get this under 5 or maybe under 7 minutes. It's really tough to evaluate players nowadays. There's so many analytics and so many stats, and are you going to do the past 3 years? It's hard to go off of 2020 because there's only 60 games, so I'm mainly doing 2019 and 2020. I didn't overanalyze these stats or anything. It's just a couple of lists. It's mainly just kind of my thoughts over the past 2 years on these players, how I'm feeling about them right now. Let's start off with catcher. So the honorable mentions for catcher didn't quite make it. Will Smith of the Dodgers, Christian Vasquez of the Red Sox. We'll start at number 5. I have Travis d'Arnaud, the Braves catcher. He's had a really good last year. Before that, he was mediocre. At number 4, Sal Perez. He's done his whole career. Great 2020. Number 3, Wilson Contreras, the Cubs catcher. An alright 2020, but he's been really solid the past couple years. Great catcher. At number 2, you have Yasmani Grandal, longtime Dodgers catcher. He's going to be a big part of this White Sox team. And number 1, it's pretty obvious. It's JT Realmuto of the Philadelphia Phillies, by far the best catcher. I'll go to first base. Honorable mentions, Anthony Rizzo and Luke Voigt. First base is pretty good position. At number 5, you have Pete Alonso. Not a great 2020, but I think he hit 53 homers in 2019. Number 4, Max Muncy. Almost underrated in that lineup. Really good first baseman. Number 3, Paul Goldschmidt. He's now got someone to protect him, Nolan Arenado, or he'll be protecting Nolan, or he'll be the one protecting. Really good player. Number 2, Jose Abreu, last year's MVP. I don't think anyone saw that coming. Number 2 for Jose Abreu. And then number 1 is Freddy Freeman. He's going to do it all. He also won an MVP last year. That's kind of crazy. The 2 first basemen won MVPs. Going to second base now, honorable mentions, I have Jose Altuve and Marcus Semien. Semien had a great 2019, and then they both kind of had rough 2020s. At number 5, I have Jeff McNeil. He plays all over the place. I'm putting him as a second baseman, the flying squirrel. And number 4, Cattell Martay. Amazing 2019, horrible 2020. Still a really good player. Ozzie Albies, great glove, switch hitter, small guy that can definitely play. He's at number 3. And number 2 is Whit Merrifield. Definitely underrated. He is an amazing player. Gets a lot of hits. Like, that's just kind of the stat. At number 1, it's DJ LeMahieu. He's won a batting title. He won it last year. He didn't win in 2019. He can play defense. He's the machine. It's DJ LeMahieu, the best second baseman in baseball. Moving on to shortstop, the strongest position in baseball right now. The honorable mentions are Trey Turner and Javier Baez. They don't even make the top 5. At number 5, you have Xander Bogaerts. Amazing bat, horrible glove, but the bat is just straight up amazing. At number 4, Corey Seager, NLCS MVP, World Series MVP, really solidified himself as a top 5 shortstop last year. For number 3, I have Fernando Tatis Jr. So electric, he might jump up to the number 2 and the number 1 spot after next year. And number 2, it's Francisco Lindor. A lot of people have this guy as the number 2, but not quite. Like, it's kind of like a Nolan Arenado thing for him. And number 1, Trevor Story. I didn't really look at the stats, but if you do for Trevor Story, he does it all. Home runs, glove, speed. He's got it all. Let's go to third base, which is another super strong top 5. In fact, the honorable mentions are Eugenio Suarez and Matt Chapman. Crazy those guys don't make the top 5. And number 5, you have Manny Machado, who had a really good 2020. A couple years before that weren't amazing. And number 4, you have Nolan Arenado, who is so solid. Going to a new team in the St. Louis Cardinals will be great. And number 3, you have Alex Bregman. Bregman didn't have a great 2020, but his 2019 was MVP level. And number 2, you have Jose Ramirez, perennial MVP candidate every year. He almost won it last year. And number 1, you have Anthony Rendon. Hopefully his team can make the playoffs, but he's been the best third baseman in baseball the past 2 years for sure. We'll move on to left field. Left field, the honorable mentions are Eloy Jimenez and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., both some kind of young guys with some pop. At number 5, you have Michael Brantley, Astros left fielder. All he's going to do is hit for an amazing batting average. Number 4, you have Eddie Rosario. Definitely an underrated player. He's got some great power numbers. He's one of the best power-hitting left fielders of the past couple of years. He kind of went unnoticed and went to the Indians this year. Number 3, you have Marcell Ozuna. Unfortunately, he actually has to play left field this year, but he really showed what he could do last year. Had an amazing 2020. Number 2, you have Christian Yelish. Horrible 2020, but the years before that, he won the MVP, and then he almost won the MVP. And then number 1, I'm going Juan Soto. This guy is the real deal. The next Ted Williams. Moving on to center field. Honorable mentions, Byron Buxton and Kyle Lewis. Those guys are really solid players, kind of similar players, but really solid. Number 5, Starling Marte on the Marlins now. He's kind of an all up and down career, but he's still a really good center fielder. Number 4, you have George Springer, Blue Jays' new pickup. He is a playoff player, and he's going to be a big piece to this Blue Jays team this year. And then now we're going to hit another tier, because at number 3, you have Ronald Acuna Jr. I'm putting him as a center fielder, even though Pache is probably going to play this year. I really like Ronald Acuna Jr., just electric. And number 2, you have Cody Bellinger. His team just won the World Series. He's played first base and center field in the same year, which is kind of crazy. He can do it all. And then number 1, of course, don't even got to talk about it. It's Mike Trout, the best player in baseball. I just hope his team can finally make the playoffs. At right field, the honorable mentions, Charlie Blackmon and Mikey Yastrzemski. Starting at number 5, I have Max Kepler. Great bat, part of this Twins outfield that's very promising. Number 4, Michael Conforto, also kind of an underrated piece. He has had a really good past couple years. And number 3, we're going to hit another tier up now. You got Bryce Harper. He was so overrated, he became underrated. An amazing player. Look at number 2, you got Aaron Judge. This guy, if he can stay healthy, is a top player in baseball by far. Definitely top 5 if he stays healthy. He hasn't really had a healthy season since his rookie year when he had the rookie record for home runs. And number 1, I don't think it's debatable. I mean, maybe between Judge, but it's Mookie Betts. He just did a GQ shoot, which was really cool. Mookie Betts is by far the best right fielder in baseball. Moving on to starting pitching, which is always a really debatable topic here. Honorable mentions, Hyunjin Ryu and Walker Buehler. We'll start at number 5. I have Max Scherzer, Mad Max. Still an amazing pitcher at like 36 or 37, I think. He signed that big-time contract, and it really paid off for the Nationals. And number 4, Chris Sale. We kind of forgot what he's done because he hasn't really pitched in a while. He'll come back this year from Tommy John, and he'll be disgusting. Number 3, Shane Bieber. I mean, it's hard to argue. This guy just won the pitching Triple Crown. It was only like 12 starts, but even 2019, he was an all-star. And number 2, Garrett Cole. And then number 1, Jacob deGrom. I think those two are pretty cut and dry. By far the 2 best pitchers in baseball. We'll move on to the relief pitchers. And this one's also a tough list because the honorable mentions are Edwin Diaz and Brad Hand. Both guys who are really good relievers. But at number 5, ahead of them, I took Aroldis Chapman. He throws the gas. He is one of the scariest players in baseball. He's the number 5 best reliever in baseball right now. And number 4, Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson's had a 0.55 ERA this year, which is insane. 2019, when he got to the Rays, he was really good. Before that, meh. And number 3, Kirby Yates. Barely even played in 2020. I think people are almost forgetting how good he was in 2019 because he was disgusting. And number 2, Liam Hendricks. So good. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. Going to the Chicago White Sox this year. Big jump for that White Sox bullpen. And number 1, Josh Hader of the Milwaukee Brewers. He is the modern day Randy Johnson, just unhittable. Last position, it's DH. Unfortunately, this all has to be American League players. Honorable mentions, Jorge Soler and Trey Mancini. Trey Mancini obviously coming back from cancer this year. That'll be a great story. And number 5, though, I have JD Martinez. He's still doing it for the Red Sox. Didn't have a great 2020, though. At number 4, Austin Meadows. Also not a great 2020. People are forgetting how good he was in 2019. He was the Rays' best player by far in 2019. And number 3, Yordan Alvarez. We didn't get to see him in 2020, though. But when this Astros team gets a guy that hit 27 homers in 87 games, the Astros are going to be scary this year. Number 2, Giancarlo Stanton. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a spot for him in the outfield. They don't want to play him in the outfield because of injuries. He's amazing. He's Giancarlo Stanton. He's a former MVP. And number 1, Nelson Cruz. Just consistently puts up 35 to 40 homers this year. An amazing player that's kind of defying time right now. That was my list. Top 5 at every position in under, hopefully, 7 minutes. I don't know. I probably didn't do 7 minutes. If you enjoyed,